hope you can see that, everybody. Over to you, Joan.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. Hello, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to my hut again. So Jenny's given us a nice introduction to our lavender plant, and I think most of us here will know lavender as it is amongst the most recognisable of plants in our gardens. And if it's not in our gardens, we would definitely recognise it when we're out and about, because its silvery green leaves and slender stalks of these fragrant lavender coloured flowers make it a really popular choice in borders and containers alike, even here in the wet Scottish west coast that I'm in. Its name lavender comes from the Latin word lavar, which means to wash. And this thread continues even today, with lavender being a popular ingredient in shampoos and soaps and many other wellness products that we buy. I'm led to believe that there are over 40 different species of lavender and more than 400 different varieties. That is a lot of different types of lavender. And they all need slightly different growing conditions. And here in Scotland, the common English lavender, which is this one that I've got here on display here, this one is Lavandula angustifolia, is probably the hardest one that I would recommend that we try and grow here in Scotland. You can try the others. I've had varied success with them, but this is the lavender that grows well for me. And one last wee factoid, lavender is not only lavender in colour. You can get it in pink and white flowering varieties, as well as yellow. But to be honest, I've never actually seen a yellow one in the flesh, and maybe that's my challenge for next year, is to buy one online and grow it and see what happens. But I think it is quite a wee delicate number. So, as I say, these are the English lavenders, and I've got them just in their pots here, just for ease of handling just now. So lavender is indigenous to Mediterranean regions, Northeast Africa, Southwestern Asia, enjoying those drier conditions in the more mountainous areas of those regions. So bearing that in mind, we need to ensure that when we're growing lavender, that it's an especially good free draining soil. And they also appear to fare well in alkaline soils. So if you have got azaleas or heathers or rhododendrons growing really well in your garden, do not put your lavender in beside them, because those plants, the azaleas and the heathers, they like acidic soil. So these lavenders prefer alkaline, so the two of them really wouldn't get on well living together. So here in my garden, although my soil is neutral to slightly alkaline, it is really very heavy with clay, and it holds on to too much water, especially in the winter time. And well, this July as well, it was pretty boggy out there, so it was at one point. So I only grow lavender in containers where I have much more control over the drainage. I can put in extra drainage or crocks or pea gravel in at the base of the container, the pots, and then put in a nice free draining compost, and then plant my lavenders in there. Raise the pot off the ground and have little bricks in beneath it to ensure that any excess water can get out those drainage holes at the bottom of the container freely, and there's never a build up of excess water in there. They aren't hungry plants. They actually thrive better on a wee bit of neglect. So don't be feeding them. Don't in the summertime. If anybody joined in our hanging basket sessions, we talk about making sure you feed your annual plants, because they live a fast and furious life. They do all their growing in a very short growing season from February through to September. So they're very hungry little critters, and we've got to feed them and deadhead them to make sure that they're continually making new flowers for us. Lavender is a wee bit of the opposite. It actually does better if you don't overfeed it. It seems to do better being kept a wee bit hungry. If you do feed it, make sure it's quite sparse and you're giving it a plant food that will produce flowers as opposed to being heavy in nitrogen, which will just put on lots of green growth. Now the leaves are pretty and they are attractive, so we want nice healthy foliage as well, but we don't want to put on so much foliage at the expense of the flowers, because I would say that the majority of us grow lavender to get the benefit of these lovely delicate stems of flower. So watering really isn't a problem in Scotland. I don't think I ever water my lavender in their containers, because it does them really quite good to get dried out every so often. And then, as I say, this summer we've actually had excess rain, so watering was never an issue. The other important care element for our lavender is pruning. If you want to keep your plant shapely and producing flowers in a nice, rounded, non-straggly way, pruning lavender is a yearly must-do. I'm just going to move these two slightly and bring this one over. This plant here, I don't know if you can see that okay, Jenny?
Yes, yes.
Yep, okay. So we can see this plant here, and it's a bit of a mess. This plant, this lavender, was not pruned last year, and although it did put on a fabulous show of flowers, I mean, like the lavenders, the stalks of lavender I got off it, and I've cut this quite a few times throughout the summer. The stalks of flowers that it produced was absolutely brilliant. The plant did great, but you can see it's now growing all straggly and like there's broken stems, and it's just it's looking a bit of a mess, to be perfectly honest. And that's because it wasn't pruned last year. So it's really important that at this time of year, and possibly even earlier, I would suggest from the middle of August through to the middle of September. So if you've got lavender in your garden and you've not pruned it back, I suggest that's the job that you get onto this weekend. So this is the time of the year to be getting on with it, and you should prune it just now, because the growth is over for the year and there's still a good few weeks to go before there would be any chance of the first frosts arriving. So when you're pruning lavender, always use clean, sharp secateurs or scissors. And the general rule when you're pruning lavender is never ever cut into the old brown woody part of the stem. So this plant here is really good to demonstrate that, because we can clearly see the old woody growth and the new growth. The old growth is woody in colour, it's a kind of browny grey colour, and the new growth is this much more attractive silvery grey greeny colour. If you're still in doubt, you can run your fingers down the stem, and we've got kind of like flexible greeny growth here, and as we come down it starts to get less floppy, more rigid, until we get to the bit where really I could snap that. If it was to apply any pressure, I would snap that. So we must never cut into the snappy bit. We're always looking to cut into the more flexible, ridgy bit. If we do cut into the brown growth, the woody growth here, the chances of new growth breaking away from this old piece of wood is really, really slim. It might happen, and in some cases I've came across a really old lavender in a garden and I thought, well, I'm going to give it the chance of survival, and I cut it right back really hard. Sometimes the plant dies, which I kind of expected, and other times it surprises me and comes away, but you wouldn't choose to do that. That was like a sort of last gasp attempt at rejuvenating the plant. So we're not going to cut into the woody bit, we're going to cut into a nice floppier bit. So secateurs and floppy to here. So that's not really an impressive cutting, what I've taken off of there, but that's as far down as I dare go with this stem, or I'm going to have no growth here next year at all. So I'm going to move this one out of the way just because it's not very attractive. And I'll bring these two back over. And I'm going to show you a wee couple of pruning cuts on here. But first of all, before I start doing that, I'm actually going to cut off these stalks of flowers because they're not going to get cut off anyway when I'm pruning. So I want to take a good few of them because I'm going to keep them and do something a bit more creative with them. I don't want to waste them. So I'm just following the stem down as far as I can before it gets too leafy. So I just want the stems. And again, the scent in here, this hut is smelling gorgeous today. I should just go and I could open up an aromatherapy studio or something like that. The smell that's wafting about in here is very pleasant. I've normally got a wet dog lying beside me, but so this is a very pleasant distraction today, having all these lovely stems of lavender. So I'm just going to pop these into a wee mug here just to keep them out the way. So these flowers here aren't quite, they're a wee bit ropey. I'm not going to bother with them at all. So what I'm going to do is just be pretty cruel, just for, not really cruel, but I'm not going to be too careful. I'm just going to snip them all off like so, just to free up some space. So we can maybe get to see this plant a little bit easier. So this is a much younger plant and you can't see the old growth, the older growth quite so easily. You can maybe see it in this stem, the darker brown here, and then we're coming up to like the fresher, greener growth up here. And this wee shoot down here, because this is a much younger plant, it's still making new shoots from the base here. We can see that this one is really, really bendy, floppy here. And I've really got to run my fingers down it because the colour is pretty much the same the whole way down there. But when I get down here, I can feel that snappy, old, woody bit. So I'm going to prune just literally 1 centimetre, maybe not even a centimetre, above the woody bit. And if I was really wanting to, I could actually take a cutting with this. I couldn't do something with that, but I'm not going to do that today. So that's me cut that bit down there. And I'm just going to work my whole way around this plant, running my fingers, rigid, rigid. Then it starts to get a wee bit bendy. So I know that's where I can prune it. And the reason I'm pruning so far down is because lavenders grow really, really quickly, so they do. And if I don't prune it back quite hard every year, it's going to look like that one that I've just sat to the side, because that's only 2 years growth in there. It's just gone so woody very, very quickly. So it's really important that we keep on nipping it back down to maintain that nice shrubby rounded shape. And you become quite adept at it. You quickly feel where you can prune to, where the woody bit is, and where it starts to get a wee bit bendy. And we're aiming for a humpy shape, a shrubby shape, a nice rounded. Some people talk about a football shape. Maybe this is more of a rugby shape that I'm going for here. Pruning all the way around. This bit is really, really woody the whole way up there. So I can't, make sure I get there. There, I can get in there. Very therapeutic, actually. So this one is looking a wee bit better already. We've got a bit of a rounded shape here, but I'm just going to take off these wee flowers because really I don't want it to be flowering at this time of the year now. So I'll just nip them out. Won't do those stems any harm either just be cut back down a little bit, maintaining that overall rounder shape. It's a wee bit askew with this plant, but I think it was that shape to begin with. Maybe next year when I'm pruning it, I'll be able to rebalance it a little bit. So that's one done there. This one here is much the same. What can we see? Quite a lot of like old woody growth in here. This old growth comes quite high up, so it does. So I'm not going to be able to cut down quite as far as the first one that I was doing, because I'm still wanting to maintain the shape the whole way around. So even though these ones aren't so high up, I can't do anything about dropping this side down to meet these ones, because I'm just going to basically kill off that side of the plant. But as you do it, your eye becomes in tune, and don't be scared from the plant, I would suggest. As long as you're never cutting down into like that old, really brittly wood, you're not going to do any harm. Just don't do it in the middle of winter time. If you don't get it done in the next couple of weeks, I would just wait until the spring. March time, just when we know, if you know there's not going to be any snow forecast or frosts, then you can do it in the springtime as well. But I like doing it just now because it just tidies the garden up. There's lots of herbaceous plants out there that we can't tidy up just now because they really need to sort of like overwinter looking a bit messy. So anything that I can tidy up, I try to do that. And there's another wee one done. So maintain that round shape. Oh, here we've got a funny wee bit of a side growth going on here. Let's deal with that. So yeah, this is a good example actually. This is really, really bendy all the way down here. That's the side. Come down, we're starting to get woodier, very woody there. So I'm actually going to cut just above this wee bit. There. Brings that back into a better shape. So that's our lavender pruned. And we've got all these clippings that I could probably actually just put in a, kid myself on, I've just made some potpourri, but I'll put it in the bin instead. So we've gone for our nice moundy shape. And if you were to prune your lavenders every year, lavender can actually live up to 15 years. I was reading an article where somebody was saying that their lavender plant, their lavender hedge, is 20 years old. And that's just because they've maintained it every year and always cut it back. Now, the plant will always grow a little bit because every year it's putting on new growth, and the older growth becomes woody. So you can't cut into that piece of old wood. So if that makes sense, although you're always cutting it back every year, you're never ever cutting it back as far as you cut it the previous year. So it might grow this big, then you're going to cut it back down to that height, then it'll put on more growth, but you're only going to cut it back to that height. So every year after you've pruned it back, it'll always be a couple of centimeters taller than it was the previous year when you cut it back. So your plant will grow big. Very tender lavenders might only last for about 5 years. Our wet, windy conditions just kind of like do them in. They just can't cope with it. And 5 years, if you keep them going for that length of time, then you're doing really, really well. But as I say, if you stick to the English lavender, the Lavandula angustifolia, it's hardy down to, gosh, about -12 degrees. So we'll not lose it in our winter to cold weather. You've just got to make sure it's not sitting in water. Therefore, always try and grow your lavender in pots if you do not have free draining soil. So that's our lavender plants, looking much tidier than they were to begin with, apart from that big one that I'm going to be very cruel with later on and get it tidied up a little bit. So I cut off those flowering stems, and the perfume, they're kind of going over a wee bit. They're just not as attractive. This wee one is still really, really pretty. It's lovely. But the others are starting to, 2 weeks ago would have been better had I cut them all then. But anyway, they're still attractive. And any wee bees and beneficial insects that are still going about, they would be getting the benefit of them as well. So maybe that's another reason why you should actually leave some on just now and don't be too tidy in your garden, is to let these wee bugs, all the good bugs, get the benefit of them as well. So this wee posy here, you know, you could quite literally tie a ribbon round about it and stick it in a wee vase or a wee bottle, and you've got a lovely wee display in the house for absolutely nothing. Or this was some stems that I cut several weeks ago. This one here is the small lavenders that I was pruning there, and this paler blue one, it's a variety of the English lavender, and it's got a paler blue flower. So these stems were cut a couple of weeks ago, and I've just left them lying on top of a cooling tray, like a tray that you would sit your baking on to let the cakes cool properly. I've just left them lying on that baking tray, and they've dried naturally themselves. Lavender is one of the easiest flowers to dry. You have some other plants take a long time, but these ones will dry in the air quite easily. So as I say, I've left mine on the baking tray. You could get newspaper and just lay them in between, like single stems in between newspaper, and they would dry that way in a matter of weeks. Or you could get bunches and hang them upside down in a coat hanger. And again, they'll dry well that way. The important thing though is to make sure and store them in a dry, dark place, and the dried stems will dry out beautifully for you. The darker the space, the more intense the bud colour will remain. If they're in the sun, they'll fade in the sun and they'll lose that nice intense colour. So dried stems, and if you don't want to keep them as a dried stem for using in floral arrangements, these stems, the buds just peel off. Just run your finger up the stems and the buds will fall off, but make sure you're doing it on top of a plate or something to catch them. If I was to do it here, they would just ping about all over the place. So drying your lavender is a really simple, satisfying activity to do. Drying lavender is one thing, but records tell us, did a wee bit of Googling, that lavender has been grown for over 2,500 years, with ancient Greeks using it as a remedy for headaches and indigestion. And more recently, in the 16th century, during the Black Plague, lavender oil was used to ward off the awful disease of the plague, and bunches of lavender were used to mask the stench of the dead, which isn't such a nice thing to think about. But today, a Google search will inspire you with a gazillion ideas for things to make and do. You make things for both household items, and I mentioned soaps and shampoos and, oh gosh, hand sanitizers. And of course, lavender can be used in baking and cooking as well. And of course, you can use your own fresh lavender, but you can buy it from some good herbal shops, apothecaries, or online you'll be able to buy dried lavender. So I did Google, and I was inspired. I'm just going to lift this up, and it's still a wee bit runny, so that's good. So I was inspired to make lavender bath melts, and these are them here. So the other side you can see the lavender a wee bit better. I didn't stir it very well. So lavender bath melts, they are so silky and tactile and scented, and it's just perfect for a luxurious calming bath soap before bedtime. So how did I make them? This was a great activity. Everything's available online, readily available online, or if you've got these, if you've got good shops nearby, you might be able to buy them in the high street. I couldn't, so I did buy online. And we're going to share the links to all these products in the follow-up email that will come out. So this one is shea butter. And again, it's even just lovely just handling it. Shea butter and cocoa butter. Cocoa butter is lovely. I was actually going to hold that up so you could smell it, but I'll do the smelling for you. It smells delightful. So I mixed the shea butter, cocoa butter, and a little bit of honey in this jug, and I sat it in a pot of warm water, and I didn't let the water boil. I just let it kind of simmer away until it was all melted. And then about a good spoonful of dried lavender buds and a good few drops of anybody. I'm trying to count and talk at the same time. Yep, that's me about there. About 30 drops I put in there. And I'm just going to give that a right good stir round about. Now, you could add in other things. We've got chamomile here, chamomile buds smell really nice as well. You could add them in, or you could add in some oat flakes, which would help to soothe and moisturize drier skin. I remember as a child, my mum concocting bath bags using rolled oats and using them in my bath to help soothe and take the itch out of my chicken pox. So I remember it really clearly. I think I remember the itchiness of the chicken pox more than the bath bags, right enough. So anyway, mix it really, really well. And then I have got a silicone ice cube mold here. And I'm just going to pour it into the wee shapes. Now, I left mine overnight to set in a cool, dark place, but you can put it in the fridge. The recipe even says you can put it in the freezer if you really want to speed up the process, but I didn't. And oops, they set really, really nicely for me. And again, this is a great activity that you could do with perhaps a small group of people. It would be great as a one-to-one activity. So much chat, so much conversation, and about all the different bits and bobs you could put in there. So I'm going to set this in a tray and leave it to set beautifully. Now, if you don't have a mold, you can just get some parchment paper, like this is a baking loaf, a loaf tin, yeah, no, a liner, you know what I mean. And I just poured the excess that I had left over, and I poured it in here, and it's set beautifully itself. And it's not maybe as attractive, but you know, like you can just cut it into 3 blocks and pop it into a jar the same way as I've done with these little heart shaped, and they'll do the exact same job. Just because it's a heart shape doesn't mean it tastes a taste, doesn't smell or do the job any better. So you don't have to go out and buy special shapes if you don't have them to hand. Just having these is absolutely delightful. And of course, all I did was, I've just got a jam jar here, put a wee ribbon round about it, a couple of sprigs of lavender, and that would make a nice gift for somebody. Or really, I'll just keep them for myself and get the benefit of it also. So that might just be a wee bit too tricky for you to have a go at with some of your clients, but lavender has got more uses, and this is a wee jar of lavender bath bags that I made up. So again, these are available online, and They're pre-made and they're like wee tea bags, so the water can work its way through there. And we've got wee drawstrings here. So we could sit these into something like a skinny glass or something to hold them upright. And then just pop in your lavender. I'm going to put some chamomile in here. That down. A wee mixed bag. More lavender. Settle it. And pull the drawstring. Tie it so it's a bit like a Santa sack. So it's nice and secure at the top. And then we've got some ribbon just to jolly it up a wee bit. You don't have to put the ribbon on it, obviously, but it does make it look a wee bit more special. And what a lovely activity to do of an afternoon, either using your own lavender that you've collected and dried and stored from earlier on in the year. You do this in the run up to Christmas, and then sit and have a great wee afternoon just filling up lots of these wee bath bags that you can pop into another jam jar or one of these mason jars is what I've got here. And that's another way to use your lavender. Your homegrown lavender especially would be good. As I say, you can buy it online as well. Okay, so I mentioned that lavender can be used in cooking and baking, and probably I've only ever used lavender for decorating cakes. So I did another Google search and I found a recipe for lemon and lavender shortcake. And they're actually really, really nice. I just put some in it again into another jam jar and sealed it. And my mum doesn't know this, so don't let her know that I've been handling them, but I'm going to give this to my mum later on. You can see a wee bit of the lavender there. And the lemon is a lovely contrast to the lavender. The lavender is a really, believe it or not, floral taste. Some people describe it as being soapy. And when you read the recipe, it tells you to be very careful. If you've not tried it before, maybe sort of like put in half the quantity until you build up your taste buds to enjoy the taste of lavender. But I just went with the recipe, but it was 1 teaspoon of dried lavender. But I didn't use this shop bought lavender that I bought because this wasn't culinary grade. This is really for crafting and for making bath bombs and things like that with, whereas you can buy culinary grade stuff. But I used my own lavender and I used it fresh. But again, be wary if you are using fresh lavender from your own garden. Make sure that you've not been spraying the lavender with any pesticides or herbicides, anything like that, you know. Just make sure that nothing's been sprayed near it and it is safe for consumption. So I would get told in about one of these biscuits, but then I wouldn't be able to answer any of your questions because it would be rude because I would have to keep on talking. So Jenny, there you go. That's me. I'm going to jump back over to my desk now. Thank you for watching.
Thank you so much, Joan. I counted at least 6 activities there. I'm sure there'll be lots more that other people can think of as well, and we can have a good chat about that. So that would be lovely. I'm just going to put us on speaker view so that we can see who's talking. It's lovely. So fantastic, Joan. Thanks so much for demonstrating that. And I really like the look of those lavender soap melts. They look lovely. I'm sure they smell gorgeous, and it would just be lovely to put one in the bath.
No, this is like oh, this is a great shop I'm in at the moment.
That's fantastic. I had a quick question myself about you were making up the lavender bath bags, but I suppose you could use those those little things, can you use them as tea bags? Those
Yes.
little things that you had? Yeah.
So you could actually put the lavender again, as long as it was, you know, your own fresh, your own lavender that you knew where it came from, or culinary grade lavender. You could make yourself a lavender tea bag, or any type of tea bag. You know, we've talked about other herbs before for making fusions with and tisanes. So, you know, put your mint in there or whatever, and it does save that straining. You know, anytime I do, you've always got to get your wee strainer and strain all the bits out, or else you're picking them out your teeth forever. So those wee tea bags are good. And you can wash them out again once you've had your bath or used them as your tea bag, and you empty out the contents. You can give them a rinse through again and leave it to hang them out in the washing line and leave them to dry, and you can reuse them.
Use them. Oh, that's great, isn't it? So that's a really nice idea. Fantastic. Well, let's open it up to our lovely audience today. I wonder if you've got any questions or comments that you'd like to make, or has anybody got other ideas and things that they've tried? We'd love to hear if you have. So please put your hand up, and then we can see. And I mean, use the Zoom hand up if you can. In the reactions, and let us know if you'd like to unmute and ask a question, or perhaps what have you done with lavender? Have you got anything that you would like to share? There was a lovely comment earlier. Here is somebody who's badged up as the Wilsons. Would you like to unmute yourselves and ask the question to Joan, please?
Hi there, Joan. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Hello.
Hello, hi, nice to be here. That was really helpful. I've got a real notion to make lavender wreaths next year with people I might be working with, but I've never actually had a go myself, and I'm just wondering if you have any tips around that in terms of the volume of lavender, how to make it last as long as possible, and how long it might last and preserve for, and how easy it might be to get people to participate in that, because I imagine it might be a bit fiddly.
Okay. I have never made a dried lavender wreath before, so I can't vouch for how long it's going to last for. Now, we do have a demo session coming up, Jenny, in January. Am I right in saying that?
Yes,
it's maybe not been confirmed yet. Caroline, I think, is doing it.
Yes.
She's doing the dried flower.
Flowers, yeah, she is. So we could maybe ask.
Yeah. I think Caroline, if you can join in that session, you will learn a lot from Caroline, because she's doing a whole session on dried flowers there. But making a wreath with your client group, having made many wreaths with other materials over the years with different groups of people, I would suggest that you tie your bunches of foliage together in advance, unless your client group is really switched on and able, in which case that could be an activity for one day. You're collecting all your stems, cutting everything to an appropriate size, not on the size of ring that you're working to. If you were going with, let's find something circular that I can demonstrate with. Nothing round here. Let's see. No. Okay.
Well, let's just think of a dinner plate.
Yeah, dinner plate. I would be cutting my foliage to about that size, okay? So that you're always getting that nice piece of foliage length that's just sort of like following the curve of the dinner plate all the way around. If it's too long, it's going to go off at an angle like that, and you're going to really struggle to cover each bit. So you're going to get all your bunches of foliage cut to the same length, grab a bunch together, tie them securely with wire if you can. And the reason I'm saying wire is because it's so much tighter and you get it pulled taut. If you use string, you can never tie string tight enough. No matter if somebody puts their finger in there and you tie it round about it, it's always slack, and you really need to make sure that these wee bunches of foliage are tied as securely as possible. And then once you've got a huge bunch, and never ever underestimate how much you need. Have double what you think you're going to need, because you use a lot. So when you're starting to put it down, you're going to have your wreath ring, and you're going to use a bit of wire and attach the first bunch on, and then you're going to take your second bunch and lay it on top of the bunch that's already been done, so that you're covering the stems and the bit of wire that you've just attached with, so that you're always covering, and you're just working your way round, covering the previous stems until you get to the last one, where you've got to do a wee bit of jiggery pokerying, and you're sort of like tucking the last lot of stems underneath the very first bunch of foliage at the top. Does that make sense to you?
That's great, Joan. Thank you. I've made a few other types of wreaths, but never in lavender. But that was a kind of a thought I had, is to make it a bit easier to get people to assemble small posies, if you like.
Yeah.
I'm going to be doing a with a community group a couple of communal Christmas wreaths, and that's what I thought might work well with that group, because I think the dexterity needed and the time needed for doing everyone to do a wreath, and not everyone has a front door, do they? So that's really encouraging as well. You've got some great lavender fields up near me in near Loch Leven, which has inspired me. And I thought, oh wow, that would be a great place to start, and a good maybe partnership actually in getting lavender from them. So thank you. That's encouraging. I think I'm on the right track. That's good.
Yeah, you absolutely are, definitely. And the thing is, you know, like your lavender, once it dries out really nicely itself. You don't have to put it into a dehydrator. You don't have to put it in the oven. There's some plants, some flowers that have got so much moisture in them that they take a long time to dry out properly. Whereas the lavender dries beautifully. And I've got a hunch that if you were to even do it with fresh lavender, it would dry out nicely on the wreath. And providing you've got it pulled nice and taut together, I think your dried lavender wreath would stay intact for a long time.
Yeah, thank you. I'm actually good to meet other enthusiasts about these kind of things. That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. That's lovely. I'm intrigued by the thought of lavender fields near Loch Leven. That sounds good. I haven't heard of where they're growing. I've been to visit lavender fields in Norfolk, but I didn't realise they had started growing it kind of commercially in Scotland. That's really interesting.
I'd really recommend, actually, it would be a good trip for anyone who's working with groups in that area as well. It was absolutely fabulous this year, and you wander around the fields and you can sign up to a workshop to make, I think, oils, but it's a kind of passion project of the retired farmer that's there. It's well worth a visit with groups. Actually, it's a really pleasant day out. Not terribly accessible, though, I must say, because it's on a slope, if anyone's got mobility difficulties.
Lovely. Well, thank you, Will. Thank you for telling us about that. That's lovely to know about it. Brilliant. Thank you. So, has anyone else got a question or an idea or something that they've done with lavender? Tell us. Please tell us. That'd be lovely. Pop up your hands or just unmute and have a chat with us today. Hi, Valerie. Would you like to unmute? Hello.
Hello, and thank you for this seminar. I was thinking about eye pillows, and lavender could be quite a lovely thing.
Indeed it could. I think that would be lovely, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that sounds lovely, actually. And you wouldn't have to have your sewing machine for that. You could just hand stitch a couple of pieces of fabric together. Would be quite nice, wouldn't it? Or gosh, you could even like use those wee tea bags and just like make sort of like eye masks out of them. How would that work? Let's not recommend that, because I've no idea how that would work, and you might give yourself some dreadful eye condition, so we'll not go down that road. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, because I suppose lavender's supposed to have these properties to make you feel sleepy, aren't they? So presumably, as an eye mask at night, you would maybe drift off in a cloud of lavender.
Yes.
Thank you. That sounds good.
That's Valerie. Thank you. Oh, I think Linda was agreeing with you.
I was just I use an eye pillow for the first time the other day. I never even heard of an eye pillow, and I went to a yoga class and she gave it out. Oh, and it was lavender in it as well.
Okay.
There was lavender, there was oat, there was, oh, I got so many smells from it. I didn't want to take it off. It was amazing. So I actually really want to make one now, and this has given me a bit more of a kick up the bum to do it. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to get my sewing machine out and get my lavender dried.
Fantastic. Oh, lovely. And there's another comment here. Sorry, it says the Wilsons again. I'm not sure who that is, but it says online. Would you just like to unmute and chip in with?
It's actually Fiona. It is Fiona Wilson, but yeah, we are the Wilsons. I just really just thinking of things that could engage people that are quick and easy and inexpensive. And it was a wonderful little video. It was just like maybe about 5 little heads of lavender, fresh lavender. And then they had some ribbon, actual, like cotton ribbon or satin ribbon, and they'd woven it through the heads, you might say. So and then down the stem. So it became like a little wand, a little nosegay. And I thought that was really quite a nice thing. Could possibly be done with children as well, depending on people's dexterity. So yeah, just a nice wee idea.
Yeah, Google is amazing, isn't it? And I've not tried, well, actually I did try to make one of those lavender wands, and I struggled, to be perfectly honest. Obviously my dexterity is not that good. I found it quite in and out and keeping the shape. But I guess it comes with practice. I need to just, while everybody's making lavender eye pillows, I'm going to practice making lavender wands. But yes, lovely wee thing to make. It looks beautiful, especially if you can get a nice sort of like a purpley coloured lavender ribbon to go with it.
That sounds good. Oh, Nancy's tried as well. She was having trouble. A bit fiddly. I wonder if we could adapt it. It might be one of those ones that you can, once you've had a go at it, you can think of ways to make it make it work for people.
Accessible, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.